Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Club Rats, the third installment. We're just coming off the college football national championship game. Ohio State won 34-23, won by 11 points. We're going to just kind of give our analysis and how we thought the game went. Fernando, start us off.
Well, guys, I came in hot with the bold projection of that Notre Dame was going to win this game. And if anyone saw it, you would think the first 10 minutes that they had a pretty good chance of it. I mean, they took full control of the game, punched Ohio State in the mouth, 10-minute drive up 7-0. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to give credit where credit is due. Besides that, up until I would say end of the third quarter, Ohio State just handled business. Their defense stepped up. Notre Dame could not get a stop to save their lives. And as soon as Ohio State kind of scored that 21-7 that on their third possession before the half, I kind of figured this game might be over.
They literally went on a 28-0 run.
Yeah, they started the second half, got the ball, scored right away. But I mean, I do give a lot of credit to Notre Dame. They clawed and fought back like a true football team that deserved to be in the national championship. They made it a game. They could have brought it within a single possession right there at the beginning of the fourth quarter. They decided to field goal. He missed it. They still had a chance.
Hit the post.
Hit the post and out. Then they got the ball back, came back, scored right away. 8-point game with about, what was it, like 5 minutes, 4 minutes left. And Ohio State delivered when it mattered most. Chip Kelly drew up a great play, had their best receiver go down, the true freshman, make a big grab, 30-yard gain, and pretty much seal the deal. I mean, Ohio State did what they had to do. A lot of credit to Notre Dame, but at the end of the day, Ohio State did get the job done. They did what they had to do. It was a great football game at the end of the day.
So you essentially said it already, but they couldn't get to Will Howard. He was like, they weren't getting stops, but he had free reign. He was 14 for 14 throwing the first half.
It was a nightmare.
Even at halftime, they were saying, like, is this arguably the best performance we've seen from a quarterback at a half? I wouldn't agree on that, but going 14 for 14, he was running to – you could definitely see Will Howard had his imprint on that game. I mean, what is he, 6'4", 6'5"? He is a legit quarterback. We did see in the Texas game, he had times of being rattled and having happy feet. He did look more prepared this game. Granted, Dame wasn't getting to him, like I said.
Yeah,
so
disappointing.
So there's that, right? Let's talk about what Freeman didn't do. He didn't give Jeremiah Love the ball.
No.
Right? He had 4 runs.
Four carries for like 4 or 5 yards.
They got down. And when you get down,
you can't run the ball
hard.
like that. Yeah.
But I'll say this, though, like when it was 7-7, 14-7, why don't you give the ball to Love and pound him to try to, you tie the game back up. You're back in the game. Once you're down 3 scores.
They were doing more QB draws and runs with him. Granted, you saw the first drive. They got a field. They had time of possession, 10 minutes for the first drive. It's kind of unbelievable, right?
Great start.
So it looked like it might have been a grinded out type of game, slow pace, run it. But then once Ohio State got the ball and they marched the field in 4 minutes, I thought the game was over after that. Obviously, it was only a 7-7 game, but stopped them on the next drive. And then Ohio State got the ball back and scored again. And they just kind of just stopped them. It was over. Yeah. I remember calling John around halftime. I'm like, this game's over. It's done. And that's pretty much it, right?
If the defense can't come up with the stop, they're not going to win the game, especially when your best player on offense isn't getting touches. If Ohio State made that play a type of football they're not used to playing, and by the time Notre Dame got back in the game, it was a little too late.
It is odd that they were able to get back in the game the way they did, because it looked like Ohio State had full control, that Notre Dame couldn't get a field in a consistent manner. And for Ohio State to allow them to come back the way they did and almost made it a game. They got the lead down, and they were right there. If they would have got a 3 and out or a stop before the 2 minutes, like, they were in striking distance. I did think the game was over still, but they did make it a game at the end somehow, some way. But I don't know if that's a credit to Notre Dame finally producing, or if that's a knock on Ohio State kind of already thinking they won that game. What about you, John? Do you think Ohio State gave that lead up, or do you think Notre Dame fought back? I mean, they are the Fighting Irish, right?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, obviously Notre Dame didn't quit. I thought Ohio State kind of got a little conservative in the second half. They kind of stopped playing, stopped calling what was working.
Yeah.
It felt like a couple plays they were just calling QB draws, and Howard just fell straight down into the ground. And I'm
Yeah.
like, are you
It
trying to get
almost
him?
looks like he
It was
forgot
weird.
how to run someplace. Even
Yeah,
when he does break out, he trips on his own
That's
feet
why I mean
pretty often.
he's the quarterback. He won the game. I really wasn't that impressed with him in terms of like being a pro prospect. If like to me, if like you put a Cam Ward in that game, or even Shador Sanders, you put one of those guys that's going to be a first round pick. I think they might have thrown for 400 yards in that game.
I mean, I think if Cam's in the game, it's a game changer.
There were plays in that game where Howard was running.
I like Cam a lot.
Howard was running untouched, and he literally he can't run. He'll just fall down on his
He literally does fall down on his own. We've seen
So
that time
They
and
got
time
too
again.
conservative.
I kind of and the difference in the game, I thought, and I kind of just knew it was kind of over unless something crazy happened with turnovers. You could just see Ohio State's offensive line. They just dominated the game, pretty much. And everybody
They
talks
could
about
not get to Will
receivers
Howard.
and running backs and all that, and even quarterbacks. If you're able to basically block every time and you give your skill guys space and time, they're gonna do well, and that's what happened.
To give Will Howard credit, he was making the right reads. He passed when he was supposed to pass.
Yeah,
He
he
ran
did.
when he was supposed to
I thought
run. He switched the play when he was supposed to switch. He was making the right reads.
he didn't turn the
right
ball
calls out
over.
there.
He didn't turn the ball over. He was very efficient. He threw for over 200 yards. I think he was 17 for 21. Not gaudy, amazing numbers, but he got the job done. It was enough to win the national championship.
Exactly, and to your point, the offensive line played lights out. They were not getting to him at all. He could do whatever he wanted back there. So
it was disappointing to see. Seeing how Texas's defense did. I felt like kind of shut Ohio State out for long stretches of that game.
I agree.
I thought it was a blueprint almost.
I thought Notre Dame, maybe they don't have the same athletes that Texas does, but I thought they would have been able to, at least impose their will and get some stops.
I agree.
And they just weren't able to.
They weren't able to
do it until they were down so much, and then it was just kind of almost
too late.
Too late.
Yep.
For all the good things we've been hearing about Freeman, we have to knock him. It seemed like he didn't stick to his guns. What was working? Like we did just say, Jeremiah.
Give him the ball.
Wasn't getting the ball.
Only 4 times. Is crazy.
That was ridiculous.
That's crazy to me.
What was the game plan then? Because clearly, if it was just the QB draws,
power run with
they were trying
Riley
that,
Leonard, and it worked. But you can't. He's not that type of guy. You're going to run him every play.
So after the first drive, he went on the sideline and was throwing up on the sideline.
Yeah.
They even announced that. So it shows that he wasn't built for that. I don't know if he doesn't have the stamina. I don't know if he got tackled and the ball hit him in his gut and made him sick. But he did look like a different quarterback from the first drive from the rest of the game. It looked like he did get gas. And I would like to ask Freeman, like, what was your plan? What was the game plan? I don't know how much it is on him or the OC, what the game plan was. But as the head coach, you do have the final say, which we have been saying. And speaking of turnovers, we've seen all playoffs, not just college football, but NFL playoffs. If you turn the ball over, you're probably going to lose the fucking game.
There's literally nothing else to look at except who has more turnovers in the game is essentially going to lose the game.
Well, Ohio State had more turnovers.
They did.
It was one, but like I said, once you
but
fall back,
it was a late turnover
over.
fumble.
Yeah, and it helped Notre Dame get back in the game. But like I said, back to my point, I feel like the way the game was going, it took Notre Dame out of the way they play.
They were not playing their style.
But I will say when it was time to come back and make throws, Riley Leonard did step up. He did make throws. So, I mean, it's just, like I said, just a little too late. They made Notre Dame play a brand of football that they don't feel comfortable playing necessarily or not to their strengths. And, the credit to Ohio State.
It might have been Ohio State's game plan to make Leonard run. Now that I'm thinking about in hindsight and looking back on the game, it looked like they were trying to make him scramble because
the problem he has, though,
he can't throw consistently.
But and again, not to defend Leonard, but he's not throwing. Like, to me, that was a game. If you put Leonard on Ohio State and Howard on Notre Dame, the score would have been the same.
Okay.
Because Leonard's not throwing to all those Ohio State receivers.
That's true.
Like, that makes it. I can't name a Notre Dame receiver on the team.
I can't either.
Ohio State's going to have at least probably 2 first-round draft picks at receiver.
I do want to say
that makes a big difference.
A lot of people are giving Will Howard credit, and granted, he does deserve all the credit. But at the end of the day, I think he's also a product of the team he's in. I mean, he's got 2 stud running backs. He's got all, like you said, first-round receivers. He has all the day in the world to throw. So I mean. Most average.
We also didn't see the O-line hold up that way against Texas. They were getting to Will Howard in the Texas game.
Well, Texas has Texas athletes.
Yeah, of course.
So they got guys that just you've never seen before.
It did look like they were a step above.
Every team,
talent-wise,
every team is banged up, but I think Notre Dame had a lot of guys who were hurt as well. They even said it before the game. The announcers like a depleted Notre Dame team against.
So speaking of that, you being on them, not only did you call them last game, but you've honestly have liked Dame the whole year. How did you take that loss, Fernando?
You know what? Like my preseason, I was not a very happy camper. I mean, I will say, my preseason bet to win the whole thing. I told John before the season started. I said I bet Ohio State they're going to win the whole thing.
You also had it in our.
I had it on a ticket and a teaser and everything.
I also would have said though, if Ohio State did win the Big Ten and lost to Michigan, would you still say they win the whole thing?
No, I mean I didn't even know if they would beat Tennessee after that. But I mean, hey, they showed up. They played one. The games that mattered that they were in, they won. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all that matters. They don't look at how many losses at the end. That like years from now they're just going to be like, oh, Ohio State won. But also I also did say from the very beginning. I told you and I told John. I said Notre Dame's legit.
Yeah, you liked them from the beginning.
I got a lot of pushback from everybody.
For a while.
Yeah, I got a lot of pushback, especially after that loss to Northern Illinois. I stuck with them. And the two teams
that was a really bad loss.
That was, but it was probably the worst loss of the year, arguably. But
yeah.
I stuck with those two teams all the year, and I mean, coincidentally, they ended up playing each other national championship.
But you were, so you were real high on them, but you did take the loss hard, and that's why I wanted you to dive in on. Like, how did you handle that? Because it's been a rough weekend. A lot of your teams have lost, or teams you don't like have won. So, how did you take that game? Losing.
I mean, at the end, deep down, I figured Ohio State would win. I mean, they spent a $20 million roster, but at the end of the day, not being an Ohio State fan, and also liking Notre Dame, you just have that fan hope. You know what I mean? You've seen them play, you've seen what they're capable of, you see the weaknesses on the other team, you see the strengths. And you just said something you feel like I've seen them overcome adversity all year. Same thing with Ohio State, though. If I was on the other side of the coin, I'd be like, this is our year, la da 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 da. But it's just football, man. I was disappointed with the way they came out in the first half, even early third quarter. But I'm proud the way they finished. They did make it at least an entertaining game at the end. They brought some excitement, but.
They made it close. I wouldn't go as far as say it was an exciting game. I honestly think in a week
it was a dud of a game.
Forget about that. And that's something I want to ask you about, John. So obviously you're a little bit older than us. You've been watching these games for a while. How were these playoffs compared to previous years, in your opinion?
It's the worst playoff I've seen, and I'm not just saying that as an Ohio State
hater.
I'm a Michigan fan.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't like Notre Dame either, so it's not like I just hate Ohio State. But like the year, for example, 10 years ago, Ohio State won the national championship.
That was a good playoff.
In 2014. That Ohio State team, they won the Big Ten championship. They beat Wisconsin, I think, 56-0 in the Big Ten championship game. So when you saw that team, they had Joey Bosa, they had Ezekiel Elliott. I saw that team in person. I'm like, this is a damn pro team playing football. They beat Alabama. It was impressive. You couldn't deny it. They only had one loss that year.
They beat Mariota, right?
In the semifinal. In the national championship, they beat Bama in the semifinal.
Yeah,
that one year they had one loss. It was to Virginia Tech. It was early in the year. Their quarterback got hurt, so they had an excuse for it. It was still an elite team. This Ohio State team, they could only do what the playoff allowed them to do.
Yeah.
So you give them credit. They won, but I don't look at it as like this all-time amazing performance.
Well, let me rebuttal you with this on that argument. You say they lost one of their biggest games of the year to Michigan. They lost to Oregon earlier in the season, but down their playoff road, they did play a quote-unquote tough SEC team, and then they played the Big Ten championships and Big Ten champions.
We all had Oregon.
And blew them out.
I'm not saying Ohio State they're the national champion. I'm talking about in comparison to other national
years.
Champions.
Yes,
I got you.
Like if you compare to Michigan last year, no, the year who won the national championship 2 years ago.
A couple of years ago, Georgia won it.
Georgia won back-to-back national champions.
Exactly.
If you saw them, you're like, wow,
they're legit.
Yeah. And they one of those years, I think they lost the SEC championship game and then beat Alabama in a rematch in the national championship game.
Yeah.
But you could still, you watch, they had, Stetson Bennett, their defense was just
Brock Bowers.
They were animals. And then before that, I think it was an Alabama team. I don't know when you see
Clemson, yeah, LSU.
and this is living up to Ohio State's standard. Ohio State has coaches, Woody Hayes. If you don't beat Michigan, your season's not successful. Mm-hmm. So if they didn't have a successful season, according to Woody Hayes, he's the greatest coach in the history of Ohio State football. Urban Meyer said, if you don't win your conference in 2006, you don't belong in the national championship.
Yeah.
So these are their greats saying
that, and that's
it's
what
not my standard. So
it's a new year.
And let's
with
be
the
real
playoff.
here. If Ryan Day loses that game, in like let's say Notre Dame won on some fluky comeback, they might have fired him.
He's a scumbag, dude.
I don't know if they would have fired him because he did get him to the national championship, but there would have been Ohio State people screaming again, "Let's fire him!"
Yeah, they would have been asking for his head like a witch hunt.
I think
I'm not a Ryan Day fan.
I'm not so much complaining about Ohio State. They did what they did. They can only play the games that were in front of them. So they won. The college football playoff committee, the whole thing, I think it was too drastic going from 4 to 12 teams. I think it was too many teams. I don't think they needed SMU and
Boise
State. Not that they shouldn't have been in the tournament, but how is Boise State the 3 seed?
Yeah, Arizona State the 4. Right?
The CFP's picks, their top 4 seeds, didn't even make the Final Four. You'll never see that in college basketball. No. In college basketball, not all 4 1 seeds make it, but there's always usually 1 or 2 1 seeds, a couple 2-2s, maybe a 5, and you get your occasional upset Cinderella team. But you never see not one seed not make the Final Four.
It doesn't happen.
Exactly.
And that to me tells me there's a flaw in the system.
In the ranking system, 100%.
They need to rework that.
It's the first year, though. I think they'll get it down. I think this year
they got to
opened up
adjust
a lot of eyes. A lot of teams that they also said that we're going to replace didn't even win their bowl game. Granted, it's a bowl game, so players sit out and all this stuff.
I mean, but in this particular playoff, I'll say it.
Yeah.
Like, I would have liked to have seen, like, Michigan, Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Missouri.
Yeah. South Carolina honestly had a great case. And I thought they were good enough to make it. They were entertaining. They had a good defense, and they upset a lot of
the SEC.
teams.
I think went 1-5 against the Big Ten this year. So I just named a couple SEC teams. But do I think Alabama or South Carolina is better than Boise State? I do think they're better. So I think they got to fix it. They got to make it where you get the 12 best teams to compete for the national championship. When they did the Final Four, that's what they would say. Yeah. There were years Ohio State made the tournament and they didn't win the Big Ten and they still made it because they were the best team. They did it with Alabama a bunch of times.
It's too subjective.
So I don't like they changed their whole way they used to do it, and it just kind of felt watered down. One thing, not to rub it in Notre Dame's face, but I would say to them, if you were going to win the national championship, they will look back at this year. You kind of played I don't think this is the best Ohio State team I've ever seen. It was a beatable Ohio State team.
Yeah.
Their regular season proved that. You got to play Georgia with a backup quarterback. That was huge. Your opening round game was Indiana at home. Wow. Indiana's going to come into Notre Dame and win that game. I mean, they had a pretty good pathway to win it.
True.
When you look at it, like last year, Michigan's playing Alabama in the Rose Bowl. They win in overtime by the skin of their teeth. The Washington game looked easy in retrospect, but that was an undefeated Washington team. They were 14-0, I think. So, you're playing an elite team. They had Penix as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at Michigan they beat Milroy and Penix. I just think that was a better, and I'm just using last year because recency bias, but that was, you felt like the teams you were watching elite.
Yeah, it's also when your team won, so you're going to hold that run.
But even like other years.
But yes.
Like the 2 Georgia teams we're talking about.
Like the 2014 Ohio State run. They beat Bama, then they beat Marcus Mariota.
The Bama team that won it where Tua came in off the bench.
That was unbelievable.
They had look at this team. They had Hurts. Hurts is starting in the NFC Championship game. He got benched for Tua to come in, who's a starter for the Dolphins, and he throws a game-winning touchdown pass in the national. I mean,
and we're literally seeing QBs that might not make that.
That's what I mean. Like Will Howard and Riley Leonard
they're not NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah. I mean, last year in that, like, if you look at the Final Four quarterbacks,
do have the size to be an NFL quarterback. They have the right
skill
size.
Well,
I don't think they have the skill set.
No.
No, Howard's he's 6'5". He's a big kid. He's he's not.
He's like 230, 235.
But I'm just I don't. He's big. If you were going to grade him,
he's probably a C-.
4th through 7th round pick.
Yeah.
3 through 7.
I mean, Ewers. Obviously I'm not crazy about Ewers, but he is a legit college quarterback, and he's projected.
But he was the worst
round.
He was the worst starting quarterback in the Final Four last year. you had Milroy, Ewers, Penix, and McCarthy.
Yeah.
Penix and McCarthy were top 10 picks. And Milroy, I know he looked bad in the bowl game, but Milroy's one. I mean, he's one of the greatest athletes.
He has a lot of
college
upside.
football. I mean, he's got to learn the position, but he's still a stuff. Like
He
when you
needs
play
proper
against
coaching.
him, you're worried about defending him.
Exactly.
He's kind of like
Ewers. You
Lamar
kind of know what you're
Jackson.
going to do.
Yeah, Ewers.
You know what you're going to get out of him.
And he was the worst of those four, I would say. But he's still, probably a third, fourth round pick.
Now, where would you rank Ewers amongst all the quarterbacks in these playoffs? Not to get off topic. In this 12-team playoff.
Who's the best? Who's the best quarterback in this 12? This group of 12.
Who would you guys put number one?
It's not great.
I mean, I'm personally not even crazy about this class.
Maybe Gabriel.
I would have said playing wise Gabriel, but Beck, if he's not hurt, is the best one.
Maybe.
And that had an impact on the playoff. Like let's be
real. If he wasn't hurt,
if Beck plays,
Georgia could have made it.
They might be Notre Dame. And then it's Georgia, Ohio State. That's a real.
What about that kid from ASU? He's a gunslinger.
The guy on ASU I like is Skipbo. I think he's the guy.
Oh, Scadaboo?
Yeah. I said his name wrong.
Scadaboo.
He is amazing.
He's a future Raider. I'm calling it right here. Scadaboo's a Raider.
I'm like, I just heard this guy's name.
Let me say this too.
And
part of me, I kind of will think like, if ASU won that game and they play Ohio State.
Wait, who?
I think they give them a
ASU
game.
Lost to Texas in overtime. That was a coin flip. If ASU wins that game, I would have liked to seen him run against that Ohio State front.
I think that would have been awesome to watch.
Because they would have gave it to him 30 times. 100%. He's getting the ball.
Which is what Notre Dame should have done with Love.
And
that's beside the point. But I think Levitt was one of the top 5 quarterback in the playoffs. I think he's a redshirt freshman. I think within the next couple of years of college football, we need to keep an eye out for him because he's the truth.
He had a good year.
Granted, he does have Scadaboo to kind of bail him out a little bit and give him more time. But he's made big plays all year.
You kind of need a running back.
Yeah.
The thing I'll say about this 12-team playoff, if they ran it back, like if they did a simulation and it was 10 different simulations, you might have four different teams, 5 different teams. It's that because Penn State could have won. Everything was Ohio State.
A lot of the games were one possession games. It's
freshman,
it's a coin flip.
Yeah, he has a lot.
Whereas the other years, you did see a lot of games. Although these early round, the first round I thought was awesome.
There was a joke.
And this,
I thought SMU and Clemson had no business being in the playoffs.
The only thing I got from this was I made money betting, and that was essentially it. There wasn't many. Oh my God, I can't believe this happened moments in these playoffs. But it was kind of a boring, in hindsight, boring playoffs. Not anything too crazy or outlandish happened these playoffs.
I thought the college football regular season was amazing. I mean, there was a lot of great upsets. I mean, even Notre Dame losing, obviously Ohio State losing, Alabama losing to Vanderbilt, Alabama losing to Oklahoma the way they did.
Shit, even Ohio State losing to Michigan. They were, 21-point favorites?
I think it opened at 19, or it opened at 21, then it went down to 19, and I think it went off at 23.
Even teams we thought
it was 3 touchdowns.
Teams we thought would make it, like Ole Miss was an automatic ticket punch. They go to Gainesville and lose.
I mean, even the Notre Dame Northern Illinois game. I was watching that game at the Westgate, and I just couldn't believe my eyes. No. Watching Northern Illinois kind of push Notre Dame around in a football game. It was shocking.
After beating Texas A&M and A&M, I think they kind of thought it was a walk in the park. It was a good reality check. If there's such thing as a good loss, that one was. But
this was a game that kind of stuck with me even to the playoffs. I wasn't big on Georgia all year. I think it was week 2, week 3. They played Kentucky, and I remember you, John. You took Georgia because they were 22-point favorites.
They won 13-12,
and they won 13-12. And after that game, I couldn't stand Georgia. I watched it here with John. I think you were there too, Fernando. And after that, I was like, I don't believe in them. I don't believe in them. And once the playoffs were coming around, Georgia started gaining some traction. But I wasn't big on them and Beck in general. But Beck might have been the best quarterback to bring it back to it. He might have been the best quarterback in these playoffs.
In these playoffs,
if he was healthy.
I'd say Gabriel is better.
I'm talking about draft
position. Because NFL potential.
Yeah. But the problem with Beck, he was so unreliable and unpredictable this year. I mean, even the game they won in Austin against Texas, they dominated the game.
Yeah, because of their linebackers.
But I thought after watching that game, I'm like, Georgia's going to win the national championship. He threw 3 picks and they still won by 15. I'm like, Georgia's the real deal.
Dude, their linebackers dog walked the Texas offense. It was insane.
One-
Their front seven killed them.
One thing I think we can say about college football with NIL
Jalen Walker.
and the transfer portal,
Yeah.
it definitely, like, I never would have imagined, like, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the way the SEC dominated the sport. It is amazing to see Michigan won a national championship last year. Notre Dame was in the national championship this year. Ohio State won it. Like, you're seeing Midwest teams that didn't really have a chance, or they'd have great regular seasons, and then they would go into the national championship game and just get like destroyed. I mean, the last time we saw Notre Dame in a national championship game, it was against Alabama, and Derrick Henry was still running in the game. Like, I mean, the way they ran onto the field, they were afraid of Alabama players. Like, it was like a high school team they're playing. The NIL and the transfer portal has leveled that out. Like, it's not a pure SEC Southern sport game. You can win in these Midwest,
battles.
You can win the national championship.
On the other side of that, though, John, I don't like how people can leave while the teams are still playing.
Yeah, that's
no. They gotta tweak it.
Coach
I'm
can
just
leave,
saying,
and then the players leave. We saw that. Which team was it that just left?
Penn State lost a quarterback. Ohio State lost Devin Brown. He transferred to.
Yeah, there you go.
He went to Cal. He just transferred to Cal today.
So we saw that from multiple teams.
I'm just saying,
that's wild to me. It's a wild concept being like a pro fan and just getting into college. Finding that out, I'm like, how is this?
They have to set like deadlines and dates. You can't just.
It needs to.
Got to be a time. There's got to be a time frame.
It's got to be. You can't transfer until after, let's just say, a week after the national championship, because then players sit out bowl games, and then players like you play so hard all year just for one guy to sit out, then it screws your whole team up. It's not fair.
I mean, transfer portal. I believe on On3 recruiting. I believe Michigan has the #1 transfer portal class in the Big Ten. But they got a defensive tackle from Clemson, a defensive tackle from Alabama. They got the backup running back from Alabama. I never would have dreamed of that, 20 years ago, because Nick Saban was the only guy paying guys.
Yeah.
Like these. I mean, not that these other teams weren't paying guys, but it's pretty fair. Like, if I'm a recruit and I can make the same money at Michigan or Alabama or Notre Dame, or you might want to go to that other school. Yeah. Whereas you're not getting nothing if you're going to Notre Dame,
Exactly.
So it definitely, I think that's cool from that standpoint. I feel like it makes it more inclusive, because I was worried about college football becoming kind of like NASCAR, where it's like, okay, who's going to win it? What SEC team's going to win it? And now it doesn't. It's kind of like almost totally flipped the other way. It's like these other schools have a chance.
I actually like the NIL.
I did not have NASCAR being on my bingo card in this podcast, but I like it. To go back to the championship game. Seeing Ohio State make it, John, being a Michigan fan and seeing Michigan take care of business there, how did that make you feel?
I didn't really feel. It's hard not. I didn't feel bad, because we're so in their heads, and it's like it's almost diabolical. And even though that they won, deep down they know we still own them. And I'm not even talking shit. Like, I was talking to my buddy, he's an Ohio State fan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he even kind of admitted it. It's they lost their biggest game of the year.
Look, Ohio State.
I don't, and that's just the truth. I don't. Yeah. And this is what they say. They hold these cloak and dagger meetings, and Ryan Day gets up there when he pencils in his mustache with his freaking, Just for Men beard, and he talks about, we're going to beat Michigan, and this is what we've trained our whole day for it, the whole 365 year. And they come out there, and you watch them play, and you're like,
the 21-point favorites.
We watch them play. You're like, I don't even know. Did you guys, did you know you're playing today? Like,
did you forget?
After it's
all
weird.
This training?
So for me, getting back to your original question, it doesn't bother me. It's kind of cool. We beat the national champions. When they give out their dumb T-shirts and it has their schedule on it, it's going to say 13-10. We beat them. So
now let me ask both of you guys this. Now I know John's a big Michigan fan, so I kind of know what he's going to say, but I still want to hear his take and your take, of course. Now, what championship is more meaningful? Let's just say Michigan last year, would they go undefeated, right? They went undefeated.
Yeah, 15-0.
They beat, obviously, Ohio State. They win the Big Ten, as opposed to Ohio State, who maybe didn't go undefeated, didn't win the Big Ten, didn't win the big game against Michigan, but had to go through more games to win. Had more of obviously more team in the playoffs, of course. They didn't get the first round bye. To you guys, what's more impressive?
I mean, I don't even think it's a question. I'm not even a Michigan fan. It has to be Michigan. You went undefeated. You're the clear-cut favorite.
Well, I mean,
if you run the playoffs back 10 times last year, it's most likely going to be Michigan the majority of the time. if you run back the playoffs this year, Ohio State might not even make the championship game.
Do you think
another
that's
time.
due to more teams, or is it just?
Well, yeah, I mean, in the old system, Ohio State's not even in.
Yeah, that's
They're out.
true.
So that's why I would say last year.
It's more.
That's what I'm saying. You know, in terms of like impressiveness, this was the worst. The Ohio State team from 2014, I think, destroys this Ohio State team.
I think so.
I don't
too.
even think it's a game.
Yeah.
I mean, they were dogs.
I think so too.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not a Ohio State hater. If you're good, I'll give you your due.
Well, you raise a good point. If the playoff system was how it was the year before, Ohio State isn't even in here, and they're not even the champions.
So, you know, that's why I was getting on the structure of they need. What made college football so special is the regular season. You know,
and it seems like games matter.
Now
less
they've
and
kind of
less.
it doesn't.
You literally said it's watered down.
Also, the schedules aren't balanced. You know, you got a school like Indiana. They played one on paper, one game that was brutal. They went to Columbus. Mm-hmm. They got their ass kicked. They couldn't field a punt or get a punt off. That's how they lost the game, and they're in the playoff. I guess they did beat Michigan at home. If you watch the game, it was 21-16, and they scored 3 points in the second half. It wasn't a dominant win by any means. The scheduling means a lot in college football. The NFL, why I like the NFL better in this instance, the schedules are more balanced. Yes, if you won more games the previous year, you'll have a tougher schedule. But it's not like how college football is.
It's not that lopsided.
If Michigan play Rice every.
If Michigan
week,
scheduled Western Michigan instead of Texas, we have 9 wins.
Yeah.
Like then you're like one game away. You can manipulate your schedule to make the playoff. They need to fix that if they're gonna, you're gonna put all these 12 teams. And it's not right.
I do think the committee is going to take a look at it moving forward. I do have hope because they have addressed this issue and they've spoken about it. Even Nick Saban went on live television and said, "Well, what stops every team from scheduling Western Carolina every week and getting a win?" And he's like, strength of schedule has to matter. So I think
100% does.
Moving forward, I feel like at least I hope the committee will take that more into consideration and, evaluate, like Georgia had the most brutal schedule. They were beat up by the time they got to the
Texas
playoffs.
Twice.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
At Alabama.
If you get Georgia, Ohio State early in the year, Georgia might beat them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, the scheduling. Well, Beck got hurt. I mean, the reason why he got hurt, you're playing Texas twice. There's somebody on Texas that can break your shoulder.
Exactly.
That's what happened. So it's not the same.
So I just feel like they got to take strength of schedule because if not, the regular season college football is not going to be as fun, or at least be what it used to and what people love to watch.
I thought the ACC in the Big 12, and I'm a Mountain West fan. I'm a UNLV alum. I root for them as well. But the Mountain West to get the 3 seed that's crazy.
I said it last week. They were just happy to be there. Boise State was just happy to be there.
He was awesome. He could have been the Heisman Trophy winner.
He should have been the Heisman Trophy winner.
But the rest of the team, they're not on those other levels. They're not on an Ohio State, Notre Dame level.
Well, they almost beat Oregon.
They did, but they didn't win it though. See, to me, if you win that game, that's a different. There's not what ifs. You got to win the game.
Almost don't count in football. They don't count in basketball.
You got to win.
How it is.
I mean, you got to win the game.
To follow this through, what are you guys looking forward to next college football season? Any hot takes? Any predictions? What do you guys expect for your teams that you guys root for?
As far as next season, I mean, it's a very early to tell next year. I don't.
But Michigan already has their QB recruit. I don't remember his name right now, but I know he's a
freshman,
5-star.
and
they
got the kid from Fresno State as well,
Mikey Keene.
He's good, but
he's a solid backup if Underwood's not ready.
I need to see how the NIL, the transfers and everything takes place. I'm not going to give a prediction this early.
That's why it's a hot take right now. It's so early. We literally just had the championship game yesterday. So what are you looking forward to next season? What do you expect? And any hot takes from your teams?
In the Big Ten, and I can't believe I'm saying this because he's maybe the worst big time coach I've ever seen. But
Franklin's going to win it.
But I don't think he's going to win it. But it sounds like, or it looks like everybody's coming back for Penn State.
They are. They're both the running backs.
So,
but the linebackers are out though, and the DN.
But Penn State, they just shit linebackers.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't. They had. It sounds crazy, but on all the teams I watched, I thought Penn State's physicality
was great.
They looked like the best athletic team I saw besides Smith for Ohio State, the one receiver.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like blown away by Ohio State's defense. When you look at Penn State, their DNs, they got some guys on there. I can't think of his name. I think it's 33. He's going to be a first round pick. I mean, they're loaded with talent.
If Freeman's coaching that team, do you think they could win it?
See, I don't know because Freeman, he lost me last. How do you not give the ball to Love?
Again, Jeremiah Love only had 4 carries.
If you told me he's only getting the ball 4 times, I would have bet $10,000 on Ohio State. Yeah. Like, how you got to give him the ball.
We all gave praise to Love and Dame for being Penn State and taking care of business, being a top running back all year long, and then in the championship game, you give him 4 carries. You know, it's like in the Ohio State game in Texas. Yeah, Smith only had 1 reception, but that was kind of their plan. They kind of made him like a decoy out there, but they did stop him. But
that Texas corner though probably is a first round draft.
Yeah,
though.
Yeah.
I don't know,
but Michigan, which you brought up, they showed you kind of a blueprint, kind of like a box on Smith.
But to be fair, Michigan, 2 of the guys didn't even play in that game against Ohio State, but Michigan underachieved this year. Their 2 defensive tackles, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Well, honestly, Michigan's defense is better than any defense that I just saw in the college football playoff.
It just seemed like an offensive-heavy, run-heavy type of thing.
Michigan's got Mason Graham. He's going to be a top 5 pick. Kenneth Grant's going to be a late first-round pick. Mm-hmm. They had the talent. I'm sitting there saying, do this to Ohio State, but Michigan actually had the ability to do it. Not every team had that. So
now I do want to revert back to your question. I do expect a better college football season next year, as in terms of, things heating up, like teams going down to the wire, like focused more on. I do think the regular season is going to matter more because if anything, we see they can't trust the committee. So I think teams are going to be battling harder in big games. Things are going to be highlighted more.
Is this thing locked in the way this is? Like how the
12-man teams?
But like how the seeding is, if you win your conference, you're automatically.
No, I think they haven't said that for next year. They said this year it's going to matter. They said they're going to reevaluate after this year. They haven't said anything.
So that changes kind of everything.
I do expect ASU to be good again going into the Big 12. I think ASU is going to have a great year. Will they win it again? I don't know, but I'm expecting them to be a front runner.
That's where your dad went to school, right?
Yeah, that's his alma mater, Arizona
there you go.
State. They were projected to be last. Of course, they surprised everyone. I think they're going to get a lot of people to buy in. That young quarterback, people are going to want to play with them.
Who do you guys have as your top teams from the SEC? Like, give us the 4 best teams from the SEC.
Probably. I mean, you can't count Alabama out.
They don't have Milroy, though.
They don't have Milroy, but I mean,
which might be good for him. And,
I feel like DeBoer is going to start getting some of his guys. I mean, he's been a winner everywhere he is. I'm not going to count Alabama out.
I mean, they're obviously good every year for a reason. Mm-hmm. They have the name. They have.
I wasn't impressed with that.
I wonder I think Texas is going to win the SEC next year. That's my pick. I think Arch Manning is going to do his thing.
What school did Beck transfer to?
Miami. He's in the ACC.
Yeah. I think they paid him $4 million.
For the ACC, I'm going to pick Clemson. Season. I think Klubnik has experience now. He'll have a better year next year.
You're picking who in the ACC?
Clemson.
Clemson. I mean, that's.
I don't love Klubnik, but I think he's had a rough couple of years. I think he'll come out of his shell a bit, and then. To me, the conference to watch out for is the Big Ten. I really don't know a clear-cut winner. I'm going to go Texas, Arizona State.
The Big Ten is
I'm going to go.
These are crazy. I mean, you got Ohio State, Penn State.
I'm going to go Penn State next year, which I know sounds like a loser pick, and I hate picking them because I hate Franklin. I'm going to pick a dark horse, which I never wins ever.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm just going to take Penn State in the Big Ten, Clemson ACC. Texas SEC, and I'm going to go with Arizona State in the Big 12.
For the SEC, speaking of the dark horse, this team's probably not going to do anything, but I like LSU because of Nussmeier. I think Nussmeier is legit NFL talent. We've seen LSU.
Is he coming out?
No,
he's coming back?
He's coming back.
All right, I like Nussmeier.
I think LSU, they have the QB talent.
I think is like top 5 in the transfer portal. They're getting a lot of guys in the transfer
So
portal.
it might not be as much of a dark horse as I say, but they always produce good QB talent. We've seen it with.
Well, I don't like Brian Kelly, but he's good with quarterbacks.
Yeah,
that's the only thing he's really good.
And hot take, there's that. Texas does have Manning, obviously stepping up. They have a lot of their guys coming back as well,
and people will want to play with him.
Exactly, he has the right name. What's up?
I don't trust Brian Kelly. He lost to USC this year.
Another thing
I know it was
love,
early in the year,
Yeah.
but man,
I love that Notre Dame, and I wish they would have won because he sold Notre Dame out, saying I'm leaving and going to LSU
Yeah.
because I have a better chance to win a national championship. What a scumbag, dude! That's another reason
They
I
were
was
called
rooting big
Purple
for
Head for no
Notre Dame.
reason.
Yeah,
Who else is a scumbag, Fernando?
Ryan Day.
Ryan
Day.
Why is he a scumbag, Fernando?
He's just a piece of shit,
There
dude.
you
I just
go.
don't like him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all right, guys.
he's
So let's that's kind of that's the close of our college football season.
Yep.
Obviously, when it gets at the end of summer, we'll do a preview for next year. Kind of see who's all declared, who's transferred. They're still recruiting. Michigan, by the way, they're trying to get a kid. He decommitted from Alabama. His name's Ty Haywood. He's a 5-star offensive lineman. So
There you go.
there's still a lot going on. It's very fluid. There's going to be coaching moves. It's a whole thing.
yeah.
So we'll have to
keep
preview
you
that.
updated.
Now we're going to just kind of go over the NFL, kind of our analysis of the games.
Yeah.
So the first game of the NFL playoffs were the Chiefs and Texans.
So my recap from that was I did predict the Chiefs right. It's not saying that was anything crazy, but Mahomes knows to check down or run the ball. He does throw the ball long. Everything I predicted, we've seen it all year. We know how they play. Something that we've all seen, which I think every fan saw too, is there's 2 controversial calls that they got that ended up leading to scores. And speaking of that game, we could each recap it, of course. But I want to get Fernando's take, being a Raider fan. How did you take those calls?
I don't even know where to begin, dude. These calls have been going on for years and years and years. And it's just it's not surprising. And I think the fan base, I think all the NFL has seen it. Everyone who watches week in and week out knows that the Chiefs get favorable calls. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Raider fan, but we've seen it. We've seen this happen time and time again. Against the Eagles in the Super Bowl, he gets a favorable call.
Yeah.
Again, in the AFC Championship against the Bengals, he gets a favorable call. It's just, it never ends. They have a guy, I think 75. He jumps false start every fucking time they're going to throw the ball. That's ridiculous. He holds every play. They get no calls. Last year against the Niners, we see play in and play out. They're holding. There's video evidence of this, and they never call it. Then Mahomes outrunning. If you touch him, it's roughing the passer. It's unnecessary roughness.
So to recall what the 2 calls were, it was a 3rd and 7, I believe, in the first half, and it was a helmet to chest contact after he throws the ball. But it looked
That was
like
in the pocket, right?
Dude,
yes,
this is such
that
a
one was
bad
in the
call.
pocket. It looked like he slowed down to prevent it. It did look like Mahomes flopped a bit, but the original look it looked like it was helmet to helmet. In hindsight and the review, you clearly see he did not touch Mahomes around the helmet area at all, and they had the chance to overturn it. They didn't. That resulted in an automatic first down, and they did score a touchdown on that drive. The other controversial call was when Mahomes scrambled out. He was running out of bounds, and he reverses back around the lineman. And then as soon as he's about to get tackled by 2 guys, he then slides down and gets a late hit.
He didn't even slide. He just
he
fell
it looked
down.
like he kind of just fell.
Dude, oh my god, not to cut you off, dude, but
No,
this
go.
shit just irritates
He didn't
me.
hit him. He hit his own guy.
He hit his own guy.
Yeah,
He didn't even touch him. And then a couple plays later, he tries to stay in bounds, and the guy pushes
Tried
him
to
out.
draw a foul.
Dude, this is ridiculous, dude. And if you watched every single game, every quarterback got lit up. Look at Goff. He got lit the fuck up, helmet to helmet, no call.
Jalen
Hurts
runs and scrambles
gets
every
lit
play.
up. Jaden Daniels got thrown out of bounds, no flag. Lamar Jackson gets headhunted every time he runs a ball, and there's no flag, no flag,
Dude, Jackson
no
on
flags.
one of those plays got thrown out. Like he was like 5
Dude.
yards out of bounds and got literally tossed out of bounds. And
If
just nothing.
Josh Allen gets lit up, everyone gets lit
So
up.
all
Unless
we're asking
people
is
blow
the same
Mahomes,
calls.
they have to fucking see the. Excuse me, they have to see this. I'm just so
Yeah.
passionate about it. But it's unbelievable, dude. He gets special treatment. It's unfair and it's unjust. And I agree with exactly with what the Texans were saying. They said it's hard to beat Kansas City and the refs because Goodell has such a hard on for the Chiefs and Mahomes that it's unbelievable. Like I can't stand watching the Chiefs, and it's not because I'm a Raider fan, because it's the way they win games. It's the way that NFL script is written and narrated. There's a clear objective, and they're just forcing it down your throat,
So
dude. I can't stand
if those 2
it.
calls weren't made, Fernando, do you think the Texans win that game?
I'm not saying the Texans win this game, but I'm saying the Bengals win that game. The Chiefs lose the Super Bowl to the Eagles. there's so much that just
the history
screws.
of
And
it.
I'm not. Those are just two specific games. There's so much evidence. If you guys go on the internet, I'll try to look for it and leave it in the description. But there's so much clear evidence, even against the Niners. They wouldn't have beat the Niners if it's clear and concise.
See,
And they call it both
the Niners
ways.
one. I don't think.
Dude, there was holding every play.
No, but
and then they called.
I mean, literally in any NFL game, you could call a holding.
but in the
Not
Niners,
when it
but the
comes to
Niners
the
game
Chiefs,
though,
dude.
like Purdy couldn't get it done. The running back fumbles the ball on the first drive.
I mean, that's a totally different. I'm talking about the Chiefs just getting away with stuff, dude.
but they make plays to win games though too.
Yeah, so that's
well, that's
I'm not.
It's hard to beat both the refs and the Chiefs.
I'm not a
dude.
pro Chief person. I try to be objective. They are the best team in the NFL
No,
without question.
no, they're not.
But they do get. They do get. Well, the odds would say that they
Yeah.
do get calls. I don't like how Mahomes, like in that play when he got hit when he was running down the sideline, the Chiefs ended up scoring a touchdown on that play.
It's
And,
yeah,
and
exactly.
it did change the play. But now
and they scored a touchdown on the other one
Now,
where they called roughing the passer.
I don't think first of all, the Texans
I
kicker,
don't think the Texans had.
he missed two
No, I'm
field
not
goals and
saying
he
the
missed an extra
Texans.
point. That's 7 points right there. Would they lose by 9?
Well, I'm not saying the Texans. I'm
9,
just
yeah.
saying in
Yeah.
general.
Really, it
It's-
was 11.
it's-
They took a safety at the end.
It's
Yeah,
so
I-
fucking
but
stupid.
the Texans.
That was dumb. That's something else.
The thing about-
completely him taking the safety at the end of the game.
the
when
thing
the
about the
spread was
Chiefs that I
9.5.
like. I mean, I think Mahomes is obviously, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. But what impressed me about the Chiefs,
I don't know about that.
Leo Chanel, he blocks the field goal. He gets
Yeah.
in. They
find ways to pull
they had
the
8
wins
sacks.
out.
Dude, when you get 8 sacks in an NFL game, you're the better team. In
What
the game.
about that Raider game that they called a phantom false start? Or
I mean, I'm not-
like, dude. The Chiefs just
The
get away
Chiefs
with
get
so
calls.
much. They
They
have a
do.
hard on for
But
them.
they are the best team.
No, I don't
So,
think
uh,
so.
so with,
Well, they
with
might
them
win 3
getting
Super Bowls in a
calls,
row. I mean,
what's your opinion on like the NBA, for example, when LeBron gets a favorable call or Steph Curry gets a favorable
LeBron
call?
doesn't get calls.
Okay.
They could call a foul every time he drives to the rim.
I'm
They
not
could
saying
get a foul.
Fern. I'm not saying Mahomes. He gets calls. I agree. He gets like that. That they called like a roughing. I don't even know. I thought it was roughing the
Which
passer,
one?
but he was running.
Yeah,
It was
But
unnecessary
I wanna-
roughness. That one was unnecessary
Oh,
roughness.
unnecessary roughness. But that
Yes,
was-
but the first one was.
I don't wanna
roughing
cut
the
any
The
of
passer.
unnecessary roughness. That was a bad call.
I don't want to cut
Horrible.
any of
And
you
the
guys
NFL
off
even
on
said
this.
that. They were
Yeah.
talking about it. That was a
Troy
horrible call.
Aikman's on air
Troy
crashing
Aikman
out.
even said it.
It was a bad call.
Honestly, it seemed like he forgot his mic was
And
on.
I bet the Chiefs. I said it was a bad call at the time.
I
was
bet
like,
the
it's
Chiefs
terrible.
too. I had them. I was happy that they won. I was
Traitors.
glad those calls were being made. 'Cause like I said, I bet on them. But if I'm a Texans fan or a Texans player, I would get upset with some of those calls. There was another play, I believe, in the third quarter. Mahomes was running out, and then he slowed down. And then as soon as someone was about to hit him after he slowed down, then he stepped out to try to get a late hit
It's
again.
bullshit.
And that's when Aikman
Like
officially had his crash out, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is not football." But also come from Aikman, dude has 5 concussions, and then he's
Well,
not in the
he's
league
been
anymore.
through it, dude.
But
I
he has
think
been
I
through
think
it.
there needs to
It
be
is- but that's how the league is.
there needs
though.
to be a new rule, and I think this should apply for every quarterback. As soon as you're 1 yard out the pocket, you're a legalized runner. There's no sliding. You just either get laid out or don't run. Because the calls that these refs make is so objective and subjective. I feel like they choose when to call it, when not to call it, and I feel like who is
But
running
see,
plays a factor. That's not right. If you're going to give yourself up as a runner, you're giving yourself up as everyone else on the field. You're no better than no one else.
The
problem I
late
have-
slide is bad.
the problem I have with the call, and it's what happens in the NBA. Mahomes knows it, and he baits the. It's
He's like Harden, dude.
Exactly. He's
That's-
diving in.
That's honestly a great comparison. He's like
It's very
Harden in
similar.
2017.
and like he did like a dive out of bounds where the guy just went like that and he flew to the ground.
Yeah.
I think the NFL should call a 15-yard penalty on
On
him.
him.
For-
Yeah.
And then
Trying to bait.
if you did that,
It
you
would
wouldn't do
alleviate-
that.
yeah.
It would alleviate
They also
that
do
kind
the
of
same
stuff.
thing for kickers when they act like they
Well,
got
that's what I mean. It's
hit by a
subjective.
semi truck.
Exactly.
Have it be.
It's got to go
resolved.
both ways.
There's got to be another rule
You
though,
shouldn't-
because then
that-
that just
the
becomes
NFL,
subjective.
the
That's
NFL
great.
doesn't want to see Mahomes get hurt because he's so important to the league.
I mean, it's literally the league.
But at the
Don't
same
hurt the
time,
quarterback.
I don't want to see him play. Let him get hurt.
But at the same time, it's not fair to that he's able to do these kind of like dives and
Yeah.
manipulate the game to his favor
100%.
when guys are running at him full speed.
100%.
That is bullshit.
And it's not just him. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks. They'll do the late slide technique to try to get an extra 15 yards as soon as somebody's about to tackle them. So they need to do something about that late slide. It's like in ball, if somebody comes in for a late charge, they call the blocking foul every time. Like you can't come in late when somebody's already in the air.
It's like this is a good thing in college basketball. If you ever watched like Duke in the '90s, a guy named Wojciechowski, every time he would get on he'd be guarding this super athletic guy. The guy'd be in midair trying to dunk, and he would come under him and fall under him, and they would call a charge every time. Like in college basketball, they called it was like everything was a charge, and I'm like, okay, you're giving the defensive player a little bit of an advantage. Like, okay, he's making effort, but it can't be a charge every single time when he's jumping underneath the guy when the guy's airborne already.
When the guy's already in air, like speaking of that, if somebody's already in air, they have they're able to get hurt. It's not an actual basketball play, and also they can't stop their body. So if they're in the air and some guy then dives in. It's not a fucking charge.
And football,
just speaking of basketball, also, same with football, the slide, it's bad.
What's even worse about football, football is a full contact gladiator sport. It's not basketball. You are supposed to be able to hit guys.
Yeah.
So to make these calls like this, it just doesn't seem fair to the defense.
Exactly what you say. We leave it to the refs to make an objective call, and now we've taken it even further where they could go to the booth and they could change the call on top. Yeah. We don't even know what the fuck
sometimes the officials don't even have a say.
And they can't even
just get the call from the headquarters in New York. They're like, this is what they did it against Branch, against the Green Bay Packers. He hit a guy. It was maybe a penalty at best. They freaking threw him out of the game for it. I'm like, maybe you give him a 15-yard penalty, which is debatable. So now he's out of the game.
Yeah,
completely.
Yes.
He's our best defensive back.
And now I think the NFL, they review so much stuff, but why can't they take penalties away or enforce them on reviews?
And that's another
thing.
If
you're going to review to get the player things right, actually enforce it for everything. Why are they restricting?
I personally don't think it should go to them at all. It should be on the refs at the game.
No, but on that play where it looked like he was going to hurt Mahomes, and then when you watch
he
replay,
hits his own guy.
That should have been able to be reviewed. It's like and you pick the flag up and it's a no call.
It's like the NBA when they challenge, then they look themselves.
That should have been able to have been challenged.
It should have.
Okay, let's.
But yeah, so John, what was your take on the Texans-Chiefs game?
I mean, I said it. The Chiefs are the. I don't want the Chiefs to win, but I do. I know football to a point. I think they have the best defense in the NFL. So anytime you have the best defense in the NFL,
I think the Eagles are better defensive team.
But I mean, the Chiefs, whatever.
Yeah, it's up there, and that's something that the Chargers didn't have against the Texans. The Chiefs, which is also something I said.
Like, let's just say this: the Chiefs are playing the Bills next week. The Chiefs have a better defense than the Bills, without question.
Yeah, I agree.
So, in that game, it's not going to shock. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I thought the Chiefs
took care of
what
business.
they always do. They find a way to win the game.
They find a way to win.
They find a way to win the game.
Whether it's witchcraft or good coaching, we don't know yet.
I think it's witchcraft.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that
they do have the best coach in the league. I do say that.
That's
speaking of Reed.
My thing
he
with
also
the Chiefs
wasn't the best coach when he was coaching the Eagles and they couldn't get over the hump, and then he gets.
I thought
Chiefs
that was
and
more
they won
so
a couple
players.
But he's a GM of both. But what I will say for the Chiefs, I guess because everybody, if Mahomes wins this, is he better than Brady?
No.
My question for Mahomes is, I guess I just want to see what he is once Andy Reid, because Andy Reid's up there. He's not in the best physical shape. If he died of a heart attack in 3 years, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I'm shocked. So, no, I hope he doesn't. I love Andy Reid. He's a great guy. Andy Reid saved like Michael Vick's life. I mean, he's not a horrible human. He's a great person, and he's one of the greatest coaches ever. I just have that question. I want to see what Mahomes does once Andy Reid's out of the picture. He comes from Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh is the creator, innovator of the West Coast offense. It's the same offense the Chiefs run, same offense that Joe Montana run. So just actually comparing that right there, I have my question. He's not better than Brady because he's running the same. He's a better athlete than Joe Montana, but he's running the same offense.
Yeah.
Whereas Tom Brady kind of showed, what do you need? Whatever we want to run, I'll go to a different team and we'll just play with a whole bunch of new guys.
He's like, I just want Gronk with me, and we'll do whatever.
My question will be, I want to see how Mahomes is without Andy Reid. That's the one thing I'm looking.
Granted, he was great in college too.
I mean, not to this level though.
Well, yeah, he wasn't winning this much, obviously, but he was still a good quarterback, projected to be
He's had the physical. He's got the physical tools.
Yeah. So next game, John, I want you to start us off since this is your team, Lions Commanders.
So the Lions Commanders. I mean, as being a Lions fan, since the '90s, basically since I was born, I met Barry Sanders by the Pontiac Silverdome. I used to go to their, spring training practices and watch the team. I saw Jerry Ball. All these old school Lion players. And I'm not surprised they lost. I mean, I expect them to lose ultimately. I will say I was shocked. You can't predict that they're going to turn the ball over 5 times.
Yeah.
We said this earlier in the show. whoever turns the ball over the most is probably going to lose the game. And it'd be
It's
one
happened
thing.
in every playoff game we watched.
It'd be one thing if the Lions turned it over once or twice. You know,
We turn
the ball over.
The Commanders turn over at least once.
Well, we turned the ball over twice in our red zone, so there's 6 to 14 points.
Yeah, it's a 20.
Goff threw a pick 6, so you're looking at
That's a
21 points. When you lose
swing.
by 14, that's the game. I was nervous about Jaden Daniels. I mean, I think he's the best young quarterback, and I mean, he might be the best quarterback at the moment in the NFL, because I don't actually think the Commanders team is that great of a team. I kind of think the wheels might fall off against Philly. I hope not. I'm rooting for the Commanders, but you got to be impressed with Daniels. I mean, he's just, for a rookie to come into the league, and with his poise and just how he moves with the ball, where he knows to go with the ball.
That's
probably
been the biggest thing. His poise and his IQ.
He looks like a guy who's been playing in the NFL for 10 years.
Yes,
I mean,
100%.
so he's impressive. It was obviously a devastating defeat. I think the Lions, it's sad that they fall into the Kyle Shanahan vortex. When he was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. They had the biggest comeback loss ever against the New England Patriots. He was a part of that. He's had 2 horrible losses as the head coach of the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Both Super Bowls they could have won. They had opportunities to win those games. Now, I'm not blaming him for exactly losing those games, but for another reason, they came up short. They missed their window. You saw the 49ers this year. They didn't even make the playoffs.
Yep.
I think the Lions are done. I don't think this group will ever win the Super Bowl. I don't think Goff or Dan Campbell will win it together. Usually,
they can win in other places,
a quarterback
but they're not winning
and a head coach, when they win the Super Bowl, they usually win it in like year 2, 3, or 4. This is their 4th year. So I think their window is closed, and I don't think you'll ever see them really get that close. I hope I'm wrong, but that's just the truth. I think when it goes bad for Dan Campbell eventually in Detroit, he'll probably be, every coach in the NFL usually gets fired. They fire Bill Belichick, so Dan Campbell will get fired at some point. When he goes on to the next job, kind of like Andy Reid leaving Philly, going to Kansas City,
I'll get it.
It wouldn't shock me if Dan Campbell went to a good organization. The Cowboys. If he went to the Dallas Cowboys in 5 years and Jerry Jones is dead and they got the son as the owner, it wouldn't shock me if he built a dynasty. He's from Texas.
Has to die first.
So my point is, I think the Lions. It's sad, but I think this. I hope I'm wrong, but I think, and Dan Campbell would even say that. He was almost basically saying in the press conference, when you get in these games, the Lions had a 1 seed. I mean,
They had everything going for them.
This is not the most toughest way to get to the Super Bowl. They basically had to win 2 games. You couldn't beat the Commanders at home. I think it's over for them. I mean, unfortunately, I think it's done.
It doesn't look good.
What's your take from the game, Fernando?
I mean, it's tough. The Lions had no excuse to lose. The turnovers killed them. I know, as much as people like to blame the offense, the defense couldn't even stop a cold.
Ton of injuries on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, they were dealing with 16 people on the
I will
IR.
say one thing I would be critical of the Lions coaching staff. I thought the defensive coordinator for the Lions, he knows he didn't have the personnel to get a pass rush, so I would have went at Daniels from a coverage standpoint, because he is a rookie, and if you're going to confuse him, I would have thrown coverages at him to confuse him. That would have been I think their only chance they would have won that game. They didn't. They blitzed, and every time they blitzed, he burned.
Yeah, they're scrambled out, or he made the right read.
I thought that was
a
a
late
mistake
scramble
by the Lions DC.
I do think that Daniels is a generation talent, though. He's ahead of his time. I think he's good.
I mean, he's got to be an MVP candidate next year. This year in some ways.
What's crazy is he is up there on MVP candidate.
Yeah.
Like he should be up there. Him leading that Commanders team. I mean, we saw him last year. They were dog shit.
I mean, if they go in and beat Philly, he's got to be in.
Well, he's the 3rd rookie to lead his team to the title game.
And it's
I think it's like Joe Flacco, Ben Roethlisberger, and then some guy from Tampa. So he's the 4th actually. So that he's already in good company there. All Super Bowl winners. First year offensive coordinator, of which I love. He was supposed to be a Raider, but then he transferred over because of Daniels, which was great.
I mean,
Cliff Kingsbury. No, I
didn't.
I mean, we also saw Ben Johnson. Speaking of the Lions, we saw
Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
didn't go to the
we
Raiders.
saw him choose the Bears because the Raiders are such a question.
No, but
what
you
the
guys
hell's
don't
gonna
know how much he's getting paid to go to the Bears. Do you guys know how much he's making?
I don't, but I'm sure it's on
$13 million a year.
He's the second highest paid coach in the NFL.
He's
Here
got
we
a
go.
great
I mean,
young
anybody
quarterback.
would coach
Yeah.
the Bears. They might be the worst organization in football too.
They got young
Their-
talent.
Their president is the former. His name's Kevin Warren. He ran the Big Ten. He's awful. I mean, he is awful. Any legitimate coach is going to want nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
But they paid him $13 million.
But,
So he
but
took
why
the
did he go
job.
to the same division? $13 million.
$13 million.
Yeah.
If
Money talks.
the Chiefs offer you $13 million to coach, Fern, you're
Money
coaching the
talks.
Chiefs.
Yeah,
so it's $13 million.
But
Side
back-
note, we just got breaking news. Shams just reported that the Suns are trading a 2031 first round pick to the Jazz for 3 first round picks in an attempt to get Jimmy Butler over there.
To the Suns?
Yes.
Nice.
So that's a huge trade. Back to NFL talk. Sorry, Fernando.
No, you're
so Lions and Commanders.
I mean, I just thought that the Lions were going to blow them out. I thought they were going to roll them. They were going to take care of business.
amazing
I
it
thought
wasn't
the
a
Lions
game.
were going to be a Super Bowl winner. I thought it was going to be them and possibly the Chiefs or Bills or Ravens, one of those 3 teams. But yeah, I mean, I'm shocked. I'm shocked, honestly. My initial reaction is I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I did not expect the Commanders to come out like that. I didn't think Daniels would be as sharp as he was. I thought the Lions were kind of cruise controlled through this game, but they proved me wrong. I mean, the Commanders are legit. They're playing really well. They're hot right now. They have Jaden Daniels is playing insane on his RPO reads. He's great. They're converting their 4th downs. I'm just surprised the way it played out. Credit to the Commanders, and I'm rooting for them. I hope it's Commanders Bills in the Super Bowl. That would be awesome. But I mean, they just showed up and showed out and balled out, and there's really nothing else I could say about that. To give credit where credit is due, the Commanders did their thing.
There's nothing else to say about that.
That's
Something again I want to highlight. The Commanders go for it on 4th down at a all-time pace, or convert on 4th down on an all-time pace, 87%. But something that no one predicted. They had the Lions turn the ball over 5 times. There's no way that they could lose that game if the Lions turned the ball over. Granted, the Commanders still had to score and show up, and Jane Daniels was making the right reads time and time again. I like him a lot. I already say he's a top 5 QB. But if the Lions playing damn near any team, they turn the ball over 5 times, they're losing that game. And I'm not crazy about the Commanders' defense. I don't think they're that outrageous, that good to make the Lions do that. I honestly felt like most of the turnovers were unforced. Yeah.
You kind of have to look at Goff. He's probably not the guy until proven otherwise.
After that was rough.
You're probably not winning the Super Bowl with him.
It's funny that
I like him, but I don't.
It's
think
funny.
he's
Last
I don't
week
put
we
that
said,
fumble on him.
I mean, fumble is on the guy holding the fucking ball. I mean, it's on him, and the interceptions.
The picks I do.
It's both of them. You're the QB. You can't be turning the ball over. And as a QB, you know that how I lose this game as the quarterback, I'm the leader. I can't turn the fucking ball over. It's your job. It's your job. The number one thing is not to turn the ball over.
And he didn't. Besides one game, he didn't really turn the ball over all year.
Yeah.
He only had one bad game.
And we saw this in
they won.
We
They
saw
still won
this.
that game,
Yes, exactly. We highlighted that last week. He turned the ball over 3 times, and somehow the Lions still were able to pull that game out against the Texans.
No, he had 4 picks in that game.
Was it 4 picks?
The
Okay.
defense played better.
But the Commanders' defense doesn't blow me off the paper. I don't think they're that crazy. Even the offensive weapons of the Commanders aren't that great outside McLaurin. Their running back core is decent, but
I like their running back.
But I do like Brian Robinson and Eckler. Like they're an okay core, but they're not, out the
They're
world.
not like Saquon.
The team is Jaden Daniels and his enthusiasm, his leadership, and also Dan Quinn coming over. He's helped form that team, and
Speaking of him, he was the head coach of the Falcons team that
Yeah.
melted down in the Super Bowl. So maybe this is his second go
There
around.
you go.
He might go on. He might do it with this group.
But yeah, no one expected the Lions. 95% of bettors for the Lions Commanders bet on the Lions, 95 to 5%. And usually when you see a point swing or a percentage swing that drastic, honestly, sometimes it goes the other way, as we see. So no one expected this.
There is in the NFL playoffs. There is always in every playoff run. There is always like a one shocking upset.
Yeah.
And sometimes 2. There is always like one monumental.
This
upset.
might
Usually
be the
there's one like that.
biggest upset, though, in recent years. Like, this is a tremendous upset.
Yeah, the last one I could think of is probably
9.5
the Jags.
point favorites.
Right? Jags made the divisional championship too.
I mean, I've seen some NFL playoff
Titans
games.
made it, I think, in 2017.
Yeah.
But still, no one expected this. But good luck, Commanders. Good luck, Jaden Daniels.
rooting
He's
for
a
you.
rookie. He's easy to root for. Again, he's a likable guy. And something I want to highlight, the thing I see with him, he's like Lamar Jackson with much better IQ. He has much better body language on the field. And it seems like the players have bought into him. And McLaurin's probably loving it that he's actually getting the ball at a consistent basis.
Yep.
So next game, Eagles Rams. John, Fernando, you guys both had the Rams in that. I had the Eagles. Fernando, start us off in that one.
Technically, it depends if you got 6 or if
I
it's
got
6. It's a
6.
push. But
Big
if
push.
6.5 was out there, it was a winner.
Yeah.
Going by a hook.
Yeah, it did win
Yeah.
by a hook. I mean, this game is everything I kind of expected it to be.
Yeah, this was like when
This
right
went
to the
right
playbook.
to the wire.
Yeah.
If Stafford doesn't fumble that ball, I think the Rams do win that game right there in the fourth quarter. But I mean, this game is just textbook. Pretty much what you would expect going into it. I mean, it was ice cold. It was snowing in Philly. Rams are a dome team, and they still had a chance to win when Stafford in that last drive threw that bomb to Puka Nacua and they got down to like the 20. I said they're probably gonna win this game. But the Eagles, I mean, obviously came up with a big stop.
I think it was more of the sack rather than the fumble. Like, yeah, the fumble's huge. It's a fucking turnover. But that sack to make it, what was it, 4th and, I don't know, 12 or something? It made it extra long
at the very
end.
end.
Of the game.
Yeah. No, I was
that-
just referring because the Eagles then went up, 2 possessions
Yeah.
after that fumble?
Yeah.
That's, to me, that was a game. Because then let's just say they don't fumble, they punt, the field position switches, or maybe they even score. We don't know. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Rams had the shot. That sack was huge though, because then they rushed that 4th down play.
Yeah.
The guy was broke and he was open, but it was just
He had to chuck it up. It was a grenade.
exactly. It was a great game. I mean, I do think if the game was indoors, obviously it's a little bit different. But I mean, Philly did their thing in the regular season to have home field. I mean, it was everything I expected it to be. Saquon broke that run, and after that, it was pretty much game
210
set
yards,
match.
I believe. 210.
Saquon to me, either him, Josh Allen, or the MVPs. I mean, Lamar. You could throw Lamar in there, but after this weekend, I think it's between those two. But I just thought it was a great game. It was to me, it was a game I enjoyed to watch probably the most this weekend. And I thought it was what we all
There wasn't
expected.
a lot of turnovers in that game, right?
No,
It
besides
seemed
Stafford's
kinda-
fumble, and that was
It was
pretty
kind of a
much it.
clean game.
It was a
Even
clean-
with the snow.
Yeah.
it was a fun game to watch too
crazy.
because of the snow. I
Yeah.
enjoyed watching the snow game.
Williams had a fumble as well. So,
Oh, okay.
so two turnovers
And they
by
lost
the
by
Rams.
6, so that's
there
the
we
game.
go.
Something I wanted to highlight that you said last week, John. You mentioned how Stafford's used to playing in the dome, and this was outside. You
Yeah.
highlighted that, and it is kind of shocking
dome
that you
quarterback.
highlighted that, and you still took the Rams down. You might have been taking because they're hot or whatever. You
Well,
don't like the
I
Eagles.
took the points.
You took the points.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
yeah, we took the 6.
It was the 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sitting there
Which was a
screaming that they were
push.
going to beat
Rams.
Philly.
I
I was. I did say the Rams. I picked them to win, but I liked the points.
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
game. I did pick the Rams to win.
But you highlighted it, which is the point is he's a dome quarterback. They're playing outside, and of course it snows in Philly.
It wasn't so much him. I'm just not a huge Hurts guy.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, I 100% agree.
I don't
Hurts, I'm not crazy
he
about
doesn't do
either.
it for me.
But
But the key to that game, I mean, that game is kind of simple. Saquon ran for over 200 yards. If you have a running back who runs for over 200 yards, and
he ran over
game,
200, I believe, the
you're
last
gonna win
time.
the football game.
I believe he ran over for 200 the last time we
Yeah,
played the
I mean,
Rams too.
If you're gonna play the Eagles and you can't stop him, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So and the Rams couldn't stop him.
Mhm.
That's why they lost the game for the most part.
Something I wanted to say about the Rams. This is one of the reasons why I'm not crazy about McVay. We see them be kind of conservative all game long, but once you open up the playbook and let Stafford be Stafford, run a hurry-up offense that the Eagles couldn't stop, and that allowed the Rams to come back in that fourth quarter. McVay runs such a tight ship, and obviously Stafford's a pro's pro, and he's going to listen to the coach. But once that playbook opened up, they're running that hurry-up offense. The Rams came back, and we saw that they could put up points in a hurry, but for whatever reason, they don't do that the whole game, and that's one of my knocks on McVay.
I mean, well, the Rams have a tremendous pass rush, meaning
Yeah.
they can sack the quarterback. By matchup, if we were really looking at the game and actually focusing on it as like a scout, the Rams, if they were playing against like a passing attack type team, would be better suited. Like the Vikings, like Darnold's not going to run; he's a thrower.
Yeah.
Hurts is a runner; he's not going to throw. So it was kind of a tough matchup for the Rams. They couldn't stop Barkley, and I do think going from LA to Philly's a brutal.
Place
it's one
to
of the toughest
play.
places to play, man. I mean, it's
I
not
even
easy.
saw Santa in the stadium.
Yeah. I thought the best game we're going to highlight next of the 4 games in terms of like it literally was a toss up was this next game we're talking about here is
Ravens and Bills.
Ravens and Bills. I mean, I had the Ravens. I was bullish on them. I bet them. I made a big bet on them. I lost. If you watch the game, I mean, they missed 2 2-point conversions and they lost by 2. So they could have won the game. The tight end Andrews. I mean, the memes and the reels out there just clowning on him. I mean, the dude
rough.
He had 2 massive drops, or he had a fumble. And the fumble was like at midfield. They were driving. I mean, it was just he had one of those games. He's a vet. He's a Pro Bowler. I don't know what to say. I actually feel bad for Lamar because I feel like a lot of people hate on him. I've been down on him in the playoffs as well.
It looked like he did his
but
job.
He actually,
and he was very
respectful. Made the throw
at the end of the game.
He did have a bad fumble and he had a pick. He had 2 turnovers, so he's not totally cleared from the loss. But when the game was on the line, he put the ball in the guy's belly of the tight end. He couldn't catch it. It's hard for me to kill the guy.
Would they win that game if Flowers plays? It changes a lot.
I don't know if they win that game, but they had a chance to win there. I mean, they showed a clip of 3 the same. They ran the same play 3 different clips. He drops it every single time. You saw that?
So are you insane for running the same play then and expecting different results? Or do you say, hey, the odds are saying we're going to score this time?
People like to point the finger at Lamar, but at that and Andrews, but I don't know. I put some on Harbaugh
or why don't you put Isaiah Likely in that position instead of Andrews?
Likely's been balling, yeah. What do you think about that game?
Yeah.
I had the Bills. My biggest thing was if the game is a 1-possession game, which it ended up being, who do I trust with the ball in their hands? And I did choose Allen for that reason. That's why I chose the Bills. And they took care of business. But we just saw it, and you highlighted too, John, they missed 2 2-point conversions. They lost by 2, and they turned the ball over more times. I mean,
you lose by 2. That's
one
of those plays goes your way, you win.
We've literally said in every game that whoever turned the ball over the most has lost the game. It's that simple, honestly. Don't fucking turn the ball over. Allen, and that's even in basketball.
Allen is
he's worked on his game.
I've been down on him in the past because he has turned the ball over so much in his career. He has not turned the football over, and if they're going to go into Kansas City and make Fernando happy, he can't turn the ball over in KC.
Yeah.
If he doesn't turn the ball over, and that's why I think Houston gave him a game. Stroud didn't have a turnover in that game, right? I thought Stroud played a pretty damn good game, considering all.
Given everything that he was
that game was a great game. That was your quintessential NFL toss-up. They could have played 10 times, and it could have been a 5-5 split. I mean, literally, it was that type of ball game. It wasn't. They won by 2 on the last play of the game.
No fumbles, no interceptions.
I do think.
Also, Texans actually controlled time of possession against the Chiefs. They had 33 minutes to only 26.
It was the refs that won them the game, dude.
So let's preview the upcoming conference championship games. We'll go to the first game, the NFC championship game. It's in Philadelphia. Eagles are -6. That's a noon start Pacific time. I don't think anybody when we predicted who would make the NFC championship game, it would be the Commanders versus the Eagles. You got an NFC East.
I was not expecting the Commanders. I don't think anybody expected the Commanders. Me personally, I did expect the Eagles. I think they have the team that can
adapt.
The
Eagles versus the Lions.
Yeah,
that's it.
What I'm big on the Eagles of, and I don't like them. I'm not a fan of the Eagles at all. But I think they have the team and the coaching to adapt to any style of play that they want. Compared to the other team, they could run the ball. They could do grit and grind offense. Jalen Hurts can throw the ball occasionally. And they have the defense to adapt to the offense of the other team. Because of that, I like the Eagles in this one. I'll lay the 6 personally. I think the Jaden Daniels hype train stops here, but he's rookie of the year easily, in my opinion. I like Brock Bowers. I know you like him, obviously, Fernando, but Jaden Daniels is unanimous.
But you think the road ends in Philly?
I think it ends here.
Okay.
They might throw snowballs at him. What about you, Fernando?
I'm gonna go with what's the over under 41.5.
Ironically, both games are 47.5 right now, according to ESPN Bet.
You know what? I think
both totals are the same.
I think right now you just got to ride who's hot. I'm going to go with the Commanders here. I think the Commanders are going to take care of business on the road. I mean, both games they played have been close. I do think the Eagles team is better, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to ride with Jaden Daniels. I mean,
let's go with the story, right?
Yeah, let's go with the story.
Book.
I mean, he's his fourth. What did I say? Fourth rookie to make the conference championship. No one has made a Super Bowl. I think he defies history. I think he's been playing. He's been balling out of his mind. He's smart. I mean, I think the guys are believing in him. I love what's his face? Cliff Kingsbury.
He's doing a good job.
I think they're gonna do just enough to beat the Eagles. Do I believe it? I don't know, but that's what I'm gonna ride with.
Yeah,
do I believe it? I don't know.
This game I might not bet because I don't like it. They played this year. They split 1-1.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess I lean the Eagles just for experience and physicality. I do think the Commanders are kind of a Cinderella story. I hope the Commanders win. I would rather they win than Philly. I guess I would pick the Eagles to win. That would be my pick.
That's a safe bet.
But I hope the Commanders win. Looking at the game from an analysis standpoint, you would figure, how the Commanders are going to stop Barkley in that game.
And they don't turn the ball over.
So,
if anybody's going to turn the ball over, Hurts will have.
And I don't like Hurts as a thrower, but he can run the ball. So, no, it could be. I mean, if I was a Commanders fan or rooting for them, what you'd hope is, can you keep it a one-score or less game? Keep it as late as possible. Put the ball in Jaden Daniels' hand, and hopefully he can make a play for you like he did against the Bucs, and like he did the whole game against the Lions. I mean, so you just hope you keep it a one-score game and he wins it late. I could see the game getting out of hand. I would imagine it's going to be a blizzard again, like it was. I just think the Eagles. It just looks like it's going to be the Eagles against the Chiefs again, in my opinion.
Speaking of it being a 1-1 split, that's something I also want to highlight with the Eagles. How I said they can adapt to anyone's game. The Commanders are a high-octane, fast-paced offense, and we've seen multiple times this year. The Eagles have dumbed it down and just ran the ball and killed time of possession. But then they can also keep up with scoring with the Commanders, and that's why I like
obviously, if one team turns the ball over a bunch of times, that obviously is going to impact the game. You can't totally predict that. I mean, neither.
Jaden Daniels might be due to throw an interception.
He hasn't turned the ball over in this playoffs
yet. Saying that,
I mean,
he might be due
until he proves
it. Wouldn't shock me if he did.
Or McLaurin's going to drop the ball on a 60-yard bomb.
Jalen Hurts.
He does throw McLaurin the ball deep, and sometimes those are toss-up type of throws.
Like that no-look catch this last week, that was insane.
Yeah. What do you guys? You got.
I got Eagles. You got Eagles. Sean. You got
Commanders.
To be honest, though, it's not. I don't look at this as like a great game to bet.
No, don't get me wrong.
It's tough. I think
the Eagles will win, but I'm hard as saying Commanders, so I'm just going to ride with them.
So the biggest game, I feel like coming up because obviously the Chiefs, if they win this, they'll be the only team ever to potentially win 3 Super Bowls in a row, which would be history. They are lane 2, which means they're -2. They're the late game, 3:30 start Pacific time. The total's exactly
47.5.
47.5. I'll go first. I don't have any faith in the Bills coach McDermott. If you compare him to Andy Reid, I just don't think there's a comparison.
Bill colors, dude.
I know, but I hope the Bills win. Buffalo's it's a city that's had talk about devastating losses, losing 4 Super Bowls in a row. I would be happy if the Bills won. I'd be rooting for the Bills, but if I'm going to bet my money on it, the Chiefs at home at -2 seems like a steal to me. I mean, to get them at home and you don't even, all you got to do is win by a field goal. They're going to get the calls if there's any questionable officiating calls.
They were just 8.5 against the Texans.
So
the Texans are no slouches.
I'm going to
2 is a lick.
In that game, I could be wrong. Maybe Mahomes will come out and throw 5 picks like Goff. I'll go with the Chiefs. I'll lay the 2 and I'll take it. I hope I'm wrong. What do you think?
What about you, Fernando?
I think Josh Allen has been having an MVP season. No surprise who I'm taking here. I'm going to ride with the Bills. I think they're going to win this game straight up money line. It's hard to three-peat in any sport, especially football. No one's ever done it. So I think, eventually all good runs have to come to an end. And with the type of season Josh Allen has been having, he hasn't having to be dealing with Stephon Diggs' drum and anything. He's having an all-caliber year. Their run game has been great. Their pass game's obviously amazing. I'm gonna ride for sure with the Bills. I think the Bills finally get over the hump here. I think they would have beat the Chiefs if given that overtime rules were not in play. You know that what was it a few years ago?
So I think
Mahomes
it was
tied it
2
up
years.
with like
Like it was
12
that game where they
seconds.
were just going back and forth.
Yeah,
It was a great game.
I'm gonna go with the Bills here.
Oh,
Josh Allen's gonna be the second quarterback to win an Arrowhead, and it's gonna be great. I think
It's gonna be
the
great.
Bills did beat the Chiefs
Yeah,
pretty
that's
handily in
something
the
I was
regular
gonna
season.
say.
Now,
Yeah.
granted, it was in Buffalo. If this game was in Buffalo, I would probably feel a little different about it.
Yeah. I wouldn't say they beat them handily like that, but what I liked about the Bills
Was
playing
it a
the
2
Chiefs
touchdown
earlier, so the Bills could have kicked a field goal to make it, I think, a 6-point game rather than a 9-point game or something like that. It ended up being right, but I like that the Bills have the balls and the players to win the game and not just leave it up to fate and Mahomes doing some fucking black magic witchcraft, right? I like that the Bills took care of business that game. It is hard to beat the same team twice in the same year. We've seen it in every sport aspect. It's hard to beat a team multiple times. And now it's in the playoffs, and now it's, in Kansas City. I do like the Bills team. I had them against the Ravens. I'm not a fan of the Chiefs, but the Chiefs do take care of business. They handle, most of the time, they have time of possession. Mahomes doesn't make mistakes. He checks down. He knows how to get the refs, bait the refs into making calls. Um, on a side note, it's almost like if you're a defender, do you just fucking hit the guy if they're going to call it anyway?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Put 'em in an
It kind of, at that point, then you have the refs in your head and you're thinking about a different type of game, but you're almost like, should I just hit this guy anyway? But regardless, I'm going to go on a limb and say the Bills are going to win. I'll take a money line like Fernando. The 47.5, though, that's a little bit steep for me. I highlight this last week, which everyone knows. Chiefs don't score over 30, and it's probably going to be a drag them out type of game. I probably have the final score being 23-17. Bills.
And after this Sunday, we'll have St. Allen Day for saving the NFL from the Chiefs.
Save Allen Day.
St. Allen. St.
So that concludes our NFL talk. So to highlight it, John, you had Chiefs. Fernando and myself, we had Bills.
Yeah, exactly.
Quick rundown, something we want to bring up in the NBA, the defensive player of the year. Fernando, from the games you've been watching and seeing, which team has highlighted being a defensive, grinded out type of game that is kind of like an old school feel, and then after you get that point, which player in the league do you think is going to win the defensive player of the year?
Right. Well, I do want to start with just the defensive player of the year because that's been a big issue for me, especially within recent years. I mean, I know Rudy Gobert has been getting a lot of love for being a defensive player of the year, which I think is absolutely insane. I don't think Rudy Gobert is good. He's just a traffic cone out there. He can't catch. I mean, he's for crying out loud, there's not a post move he could put to memory. And granted, it is a defensive award, but when I watch the Timberwolves play, I never say, "Oh man, this guy's a dominant defender." You know what I mean? Like I see him.
You don't fear him out there.
You don't fear him out there. He's just kind of out there. You know what I mean? I'm not a big Rudy Gobert. I mean, for crying out loud, in the Olympics when he was playing for France, they wouldn't put him out there. Like, give me a break. I do think
Wemby, he surrendered and put his head between a guy's leg.
Oh my goodness, I know. He shut the whole league down a couple years ago. He shut the
he ruined the world.
Yeah. But I do think I want to make this quick, concise, and clear. I think Wemby is easily the defensive player of the year, and he should have won it last year. Granted, people can say Anthony Davis, probably, this and that, but I mean, this dude, like, people fear going to the rim when they play the Spurs. I feel like you definitely feel his presence. His height obviously helps his length. But I would say last year it could have been between Davis and Wemby. They wouldn't give it to a rookie. But I think Wemby this year by far is easily, no doubt about it, should be unanimous defensive MVP.
Okay. John?
I mean, it's hard to disagree with Wemby not being the defensive player of the year. I think he is. He's averaging 4 blocks a game.
Yep, 4 blocks and 1.1 steals a game.
And he's also
thus far
as good as he is on defense. He's not the best offensive player in the NBA, but he's 7'5" and he can make a 3. He can dribble.
He's been shooting one-legged threes.
He's averaging 24
He's a
a game.
three-level scorer.
I mean, he is. Wemby. You would want to just say if you can just keep him healthy and just keep him developing. He's definitely a championship level type player at some point.
There's almost no
player.
reason why Wemby can't win multiple DPoYs.
Yeah. He has been dunked on a lot this season. Now he is challenging people at the rim. He does try to block everything. So yeah, he gets dunked on by Morant and other players.
Well, that didn't count. No, I'm just.
But still,
well, it didn't count.
I know
it's
what
always
you
the
mean.
best dunk of the year, probably. I mean, who else would we consider besides Wemby? Maybe
AD is up there. It is kind of diabolical that he's never won a DPoY.
He's a great defensive player, underrated.
All round because he could guard the perimeter. He could switch onto the guards.
Just not Jamal Murray.
That's tough though.
Yeah.
You're asking a 7
No, I know.
guard.
He's just killed us over and over again.
I mean, like Gobert, there are times like in the playoffs last year, he couldn't even stay on the court, and that's not all his fault. The way the NBA is now, it's so guard, stretch 4, stretch 5. The game has changed, but I still can't imagine a guy being defensive player of the year and you can't have him on the floor. Like, I don't ever remember, I grew up of watching defensive player of the years. It was first I see Dikembe Mutombo. He won it 4 times.
Yep.
Then he led his team as an old Mutombo. He was with Iverson.
0-1.
They made it to the finals. They got beat by the Lakers. Shaq stuffed him in the basket with the ball. But he still was a guy who got him to the finals. He wasn't a liability out there.
Right.
Then I saw Ben Wallace 4 times win Defensive Player of the Year. Everybody's afraid of Ben Wallace, even to this day still. Like, I would watch him switch on to point guards. I saw him guard Allen Iverson. I saw him in the same finals that year guard Shaq and stop him at the rim. I mean,
at only being 6'9", and that might be
he won
pushing it. He might really be 6'7".
6'8", 6'7", yeah. When you saw Ben Wallace, he was the real deal. That one game when LeBron James, I think he scored 31 consecutive points. What was so impressive about that, and why it might be the most impressive thing I've ever seen, is he wasn't just doing that against a crap team. It was Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, and Tayshaun Prince. Those 3 guys were hitting him at the rim. I mean, that Pistons team is an all-time great defensive team ever. And he scored 31 straight on it. I was like,
set the standard.
That was impressive. Yeah. So, I look at a guy like Rudy Gobert. I don't even know how he could even play on those. We're talking about defensive players that got their teams to the final or won the championship. Another great player who only got 1 defensive player of the year, but he was a guy where he was in the top 5, as along with Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was an underrated defensive player too.
Not only underrated, I mean,
Kevin
people
Garnett
rated him, but he never won the reward, which is unbelievable.
Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan's way better than Rudy Gobert on defense. And Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett led the Celtics.
Fierce, dude.
He set up that whole team.
That was the year he won DPoY. Was when the Celtics made the finals.
Garnett, I'm talking about Duncan. Never won a DPoY.
I thought you said
Duncan never won it.
Never.
And that's not right.
Robinson won one in between Hakeem, I believe.
And Dave Robinson was a great defensive player, but Duncan was super good. I mean, super underrated. But KG, again, he won it. They won the title 3 years after the Pistons, and KG was their
anchor.
He was the defensive piece on that team, the anchor, whatever you want to call him. And KG, another fearful guy. You didn't punk KG. You didn't ask to switch on him, and you're gonna make a jumper in his face, or if you did, he's gonna bite you. You know what I mean? It's like
he's gonna make it hard, and that's something that
I would even say the only guy that kind of plays in this era with that mentality, whether you hate him or love him, is Draymond. He does. I mean, he's coming out there for blood,
ferocious.
And Draymond's not a big man. What is he? 6'5", 6'6". He plays big. For his
he's
size.
out there.
He's really the only one.
He plays with that mentality.
He's really the only one. I'm going to highlight Wemby on this. Besides Wemby, to guard Jokic relatively well. Back to my original point, who do I think is gonna, or question, who do I think is gonna win DPoY? I don't think it's a question. It should be Wemby. Granted,
who are the top 5? Because the NBA.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be who are the top 5
right now.
There's got to be somebody we're not talking
about. Right now, there's since it's only halfway through the season, and like the Thunder are so much better than the rest of the league right now. Some of the defensive stats, like the on-off numbers and the defensive win shares, the Thunder have 5 people in the top 10.
Is Dort their best defensive guy?
It's technically Shea. But
Really?
Shea's their
He's not
number
gonna
one
win
defensive.
DPoY.
He's not going to win it.
He's offensive player of the year.
Dort is towards the bottom of the top 10. Again, those numbers are kind of miscued because they have been so much better than the rest of the league this year.
They do have a
And
good
with the defensive
team,
win shares, it only takes into account when you're on the floor. So Shea plays all the winning possessions, and when they blow a team out, they take them off the court, bench player versus bench players, and then the teams get a little bit muffled after that. But in my opinion, like the top 5-ish defenders in the league, I like, obviously, I said Wemby, AD. Jaren Jackson's still up there. He's been anchoring their team very well. He has switchability, block shot capability as well. He's a Swiss Army knife, really. I love Evan Mobley on the Cavaliers. He's been playing the power forward position. But honestly, him and Jared Allen split minutes, whether they're the Twin Tower lineup, he's been able to guard the perimeter when they run the Twin Tower lineup to versus when Jared Allen's on the bench and he's guarding the bigs. Evan Mobley's the full package. Pause if needed.
He went to SC, didn't he?
I was going to ask you on the Celtics, because like just to go back to last year, and they are struggling. And I talked to you about this, and I didn't know this. It's not necessarily a rule change, but the NBA this season
they're giving more leeway to hand
has
checking.
letting the physicality play out, and it's not letting the Celtics just get those clean threes. I think that's like what are they 7 and 8 in their last 15 or?
I believe they're 8 and 7 in their last 15. So, but the Celtics are still top.
But I want to ask you, because I thought last year when I watched the Celtics, I thought Holiday was
their best defender.
Yeah, I mean he just was. I thought he was amazing for a guard. Now he's not a big
best defender.
But he was awesome.
Really,
Jaylen Brown was a dog too.
It's all the above. I think they do it by committee.
Those two stuck out to me though.
Team wise, the Celtics are in the top 5 on defensive ratings.
They're not.
No, they are in the top 5.
Okay.
So the top 5 is Thunder at number 1. Again, they're so much better than the rest of the league this year. They're killing it offensively and defensively. They're number 1 defensive rating at a 103.2. After that, it's a bit of a jump. And after that, it's kind of a mix-up. So day by day, this stuff will change. But right now, it's Clippers at number 2, Magic at 3.
Clippers, really?
Clippers number 2 defensive rating, Magic number 3, Rockets 4, which I've been highlighting the Rockets. You highlighted them last week. Rockets are 4 though, and Celtics are 5. What's the anomaly of these top 5 defensive ratings? It shows their steals and blocks, right? For example, the Thunder get 11.4 steals a game and 5.8 blocks roughly. All these teams get around 9 to 10 steals and 4 to 6 blocks. Then there's the Celtics. Again, they do by committee. They don't cause turnovers, but they make the team miss. They only get 7.4 steals a game, so that's a clear drop-off on the other top 5 teams. Their blocks are up there 5.8, but I want to highlight the Spurs. You said Wemby averages 4 blocks a game, which is true. He averaged 4 blocks a game and 1 steal. The Spurs are ranked 18th in defensive rating. I don't blame Wemby on that. That is a team stat, right? But it is wild.
The players around
it is wild that Wemby averages 4 blocks a game, and their team averages 6.9. So he gets all their blocks. It's kind of crazy.
Is Popovich? Is he still sick? What's his status?
He's sick. He's not there right now.
So that hurts him.
He might be done after this year.
We don't know what's going on with him. I kind of predicted that as well when he got the extension, that he was kind of take a backseat role type of thing.
There's one thing I'd like to say. There's 2 defensive player of the year potential guys I could see in the Thompson twins. I don't know about the one in Houston. He seems to be more of a scorer, but physically, both of them, the one in Detroit and the one in Houston, their athleticism, if they wanted to, just to focus on defense, I could see them in 5 years being defensive player of the year type candidates. I mean,
it's funny that you say the one in Houston seems more offensive. I actually think it's the opposite. I think
this is what they told me when they were drafted. What was offense? What was defense?
Amin and Tari Eason is the goon squad off the bench.
But either one of them, to me, it's just a mindset. If they get the right coach that like pushes it on them and says, "Hey, you be defensive player of the year award." When Dennis Rodman came out of the Pistons when he was like a rookie, and a second-year player. Chuck Daly, Isaiah Thomas, they kind of like they cultivated him to be that guy. If those 2 guys as franchise do something like, they have the athleticism where they could be a terror on defense. They're super long, they're insanely athletic. They don't get tired. I mean, they have everything you want
they're
to
the
be
Energizer bunnies out
defensive
there.
type players. And LeBron said the same thing. He's like, just say what Cade said, where those 2 guys are just different athletes. And we're talking about Cade and LeBron, who in their own right are good. LeBron's one of the greatest athletes the country's ever produced, And Cade's not at that level, but he's still. I
Yeah.
mean, the dude's killing right now in the NBA.
Yeah.
For those guys to give compliments to those players, it wouldn't shock me if they were on the radar for
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year at
I
some
think
point.
LaMelo Ball is coming up on Defensive Player of the Year.
I think we talked about who's going to get it.
Yeah, so we all think Wemby. I really don't think it's close. Do I think Wemby will be up there with the other two all-timers on DPoY at
Nah.
4? Yeah, I think Wemby could get 4.
See, the reason why I don't think he will, because he's so good on offense, he's going to focus more on offense when he gets older. Ben Wallace and Dikembe Mutombo and KG, as he got older, they did just make defense about their game. KG still could score.
I think he's an exception,
But
though.
Wemby
He's just a freak athlete.
Wemby's going to get the stats. So it does determine, kind of like the MVP, they change the criteria year in and year out. Do we give it to the best team with the best player?
I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah.
I just think
Wemby probably will have the counting stats. Is there any reason he'll get less than 3 blocks a game?
No.
I can't see it.
I think
He
will
does,
for sure be.
It would be one thing if he was in foul trouble, but he doesn't get in foul trouble. He doesn't foul. He jumps at a lot of shots, but he doesn't foul much.
I think he could get more than 3 or 4 defensive MVP.
It is wild that Gobert and Wallace both have 4. John, obviously you're a Pistons fan. Wallace has 4. Gobert has 4. How does that make you feel?
I mean, it makes me realize how far the NBA has fallen.
Yeah.
Just because on that Pistons team, hell, it wasn't even just Ben Wallace. I think they had 5 guys better on defense than Rudy Gobert.
Sheed, Prince,
Phillips.
Phillips, and people make fun of Rip in the playoffs. He went at Ron Artest and he went at Kobe. Like, I mean, those guys locked you up.
People in the NBA say they're not scared of Gobert. Like, they
No,
don't
that's
understand
that's what I'm saying.
why
It's
he's a
just
defensive player. They go at him.
Someone I want to highlight, but really it's a low light. Speaking of Gobert getting played off the floor, this is the whole reason why he got traded away from Utah. Utah played the Clippers in the playoffs, and Terrence Mann, he was nothing, and he's still not much, but he got a contract off of just this playoff series. Terrence Mann was running the stretch 5, and Gobert got played off the floor.
I think we'll wrap up the show today.
Yeah.
A couple things I think we're gonna talk about going forward. Obviously, college football is done. We kind of took on the show towards the end of the season. We'll obviously pick back up
as a big thing
next year.
Next year, yeah.
When the NFL's done, I think we're going to want to obviously continue talking about NBA, but I think we'll actually start talking about college basketball
for sure
as we move into
later
into the conference tournaments, conference regular season play. College basketball about mid-February through April really starts to pick up, and it's great. So those will be our 2 things we talk about.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a shout out to Carmine's. I give their pizza 8.7. I give the chicken fingers probably an 8.5, and the garlic knots probably a 7.5.
What about the ranch?
The ranch is a 9.
The ranch is a 9.
The ranch is solid.
I've been going to Carmine's for years. It's always some of my favorite. This pie, compared to his other ones, this is up there. We even had it cold, and it's still unbelievable. I would say probably 8.8, 8.9. Pizza fingers are such a great combo. I probably rate it 8.5 as well. The ranch, I believe it's the best ranch in town. They make it themselves. The ranch is a 9.5. And the garlic knots, they're all right. They were about a 7.2 this time, but I've had better from Carmine's, but it's my spot for sure.
I'll give the pizza a solid 8.5 to 8 to 8.5, just depending on what you're tasting. The ranch is to die for 9. And the garlic knots, I'll give it a solid 7.
There you go.
But yeah, Carmine's solid place.
And I'm Jesiah.
Fernando.
I'm John.
And we're the Club Rats. Remember to like, subscribe, follow us, and share us with your friends. Thanks for watching us. See you guys next week.
Yep. Episode 3 in the books.